Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. This video is a channel update, I guess, on progress for things that I have been doing, which includes my reading challenge for, 2025, but I've been keeping track of it on Goodreads, which I am currently at 37% through my goal for the year, and February is not over yet. So I seem to be doing pretty good on keeping myself glued to the page here. So we have 11 out of 30 books. 30 books was the goal that I had set. And as of lately, I've already done book reviews on a couple of these, like Nobody's Coming to Save You and Al-Qaeda 2.0. Then we have Batman and Philosophy, The Dark Night of the Soul by Mark D. White. Oh, major boring stuff. Not a fan. It got a lot into basically like the morality of Batman and, is it morally right for him to allow the Joker to live or to kill? Like the same old questions that everybody's been asking forever. It doesn't really answer anything. A collection of essays. It really kind of killed the whole idea for some of the other books I was going to read after that. So I went on to finishing Find, Fix, Finish by Jeremy Brown. I've actually met this guy a couple of times. He was a local writer in Kalamazoo. He had a series of books called the Woodshed Wallace series, which was really like if I had to compare it to anything, it'd be like the Jack Reacher novels, but if it was an MMA Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. That kind of thing, right? Like big tough dude gets himself into horrible situations and gets himself out of them. But this one, Find, Fix, Finish, took place on the American-Mexican border. These guys that are working in this site, which is right on the border, they run into some cartel members and a whole bunch of crap goes down. So it was entertaining. There were times where I felt like it was kind of like dragging on, but I could see where a lot of it was building up. So it's definitely worth a read. I do like his other books. This was something later on that he had been doing outside of the Woodshed Wallace series. Then we get to Pain Hollow, Life on the Fringe of Society by Harlan Hubbard. This was an older book about a guy after World War II who lives in a shanty boat at first, travels down the Mississippi River to Louisiana, finds a spot down there, sells the boat. Him and his wife travel out west in a car, which that was like a really short part of the book. And then eventually they go back to Ohio, build a house. And I believe they sell the house and move back to Pain Hollow in Louisiana, where they built another house. They got a plot of land and they got some goats, and it was interesting to read, considering the type of lifestyle that him and his wife decided to partake in. We also have Jean Le Carrère, his first 3 George Smiley novels. So we've got, trying to remember which order these were in. I believe it's Call for the Dead. That one was rough. It was a whole lot of dialogue. Just a bunch of people talking. And then there's Murder of Quality, which was a lot better. That was basically a murder mystery. Um, this woman's found dead in her house. Some letters were sent prior. They were trying to figure out who did it, if it was the husband, like who snuck into the house. Was it this kid that cheated on some type of test? So it was getting better. And then, of course, The Spy Who Came in from the Cold. That was his big breakthrough novel. And all of these are really short books. They're like 3-hour audiobooks to read. So you can really sit down in an afternoon and read one of these. They're really no longer than the original like James Bond novels, which were really, really thin books. And that's kind of what these were as well. And The Spy Who Came in from the Cold, it was easier to follow because I had seen the movie years ago, the black and white film. And actually, I think reading the book this time around, having the reference in the movie actually helped in both situations. Because I don't recall in the movie like being able to follow it all that well, and then kind of already having the plot and really looking at the details of what was going on in the book worked out a lot better. So the last 2 books that I have read, and actually I finished them this week. First one was Social Justice Madness by Chad A. Haag, Haag. He also has a YouTube channel. This is a modern day philosopher who, this guy dives into all kinds of news, philosophers, philosophy, different way of looking at things. He's really big on the peak oil movement, if you want to call it that. Talks a lot about Michael Rupert and several other peak oil enthusiasts, if you will. So his channel, I would highly suggest checking that out. This is a guy that I believe he's from the Midwest, went to college, realized that all the books that his philosophy teachers had him reading were garbage, or it was stuff that he had already read. And he's like, where's the new stuff? And so he ended up dropping, I believe he dropped out of college, moved to India, because he was like, hey, if you're going to give me a bullshit education, I'm going to give you a bullshit payment on my student loans. So he moves to India, got married. I believe they just had their second kid. And fascinating guy. Really goes deep into Ted Kaczynski. Not really a topic too many philosophers would dabble in, but this guy, no, he's got a whole book on the philosophy of Ted Kaczynski. But this one, Social Justice Madness, this really pinned down like the chaos and the anarchy that was happening in 2020. This is a newer book. So he dives deep into like the BLM protest and wearing masks and just all of that stuff that happened that year. So it was a fascinating read. Not a thick book. I want to say it was like 150 pages. But the amount of information that he throws in there, it really keeps you glued to the page. And then the most recent book I finished reading was The Last Huck by J.D. Austin. I believe he's, how do you say, local, northern Michigander. He spent quite a bit. This is his first novel, and I actually picked this up at the local Horizon bookstore on a whim. And I mean, it kind of reminds me a lot of like the Nick Adams short stories by Hemingway and some of the novellas from Jim Harrison is really what it reminds me of, because it talks a lot about the history of the Upper Peninsula, the mining towns, the orchards, different cities, how people that grow up here, they tend to move to places like Detroit, Chicago, and then they end up getting pulled back. But this is about two cousins. There were three boys that their uncle left this property to. And the property has got a cabin on it, and basically they could go up there anytime, go camping, visiting the local area, see family. And then one of the brothers, who I'm kind of convinced towards the end of it, made up a bunch of shit. He's trying to say this book takes place in, I believe it's 2009, 2010. So he loses his job at Wells Fargo, and so he has no money coming in. His child is allegedly diagnosed with leukemia, but then they never establish, because he was supposed to call his wife back to find out what the test results were, and they never discuss it in the book, whether or not the kid actually has leukemia. And this whole trip that these two cousins go on, the third cousin's in prison, by the way, and they're selling the property out from under him. And the only thing that they're going to get in return is like $9,000 each. I worked on a pulmonary oncology floor. I know how much chemo costs, especially for stuff like leukemia. $9,000 isn't going to cover one treatment, which is why I think this one cousin is just full of crap. No, I think he was looking for the $9,000 in order to cruise on by for a little bit until he found something else to do. But that was my takeaway from the book. Man, there was a lot of history in here, a lot of great characters. Really, it does a good job of like tying the family history and everything together, and like how the property came to the possession of these kids. I'm just gonna call them kids, because quite frankly, neither one of them really seem to have grown up. But it's a really good book for being somebody's first novel. And it's not all that long either. I think on Goodreads they had it as 250 pages, but it's really 189. So if you see this, check it out, because it's pretty darn good. And what am I currently reading? Eye of the Chicken Hawk. So the cover is a chart. And this chart is tying together a bunch of well-documented, maybe not as well known, but there are court cases, filings, news articles about all of these child stuck in traffic situations. I don't know how to word that on YouTube. And kids who are found deleted, if you will. And it talks about, one of the reasons I picked this book up was that it talks about a place called Fox Island, which is not too far from where I live. It's actually not that far away from Traverse City. Privately owned island, has its own runway. I believe the guy who owned it had some type of boys club on the island where some accusations came out, and people who have visited the island recently discovered that the house that was on the island was burned down. Gee, I wonder why. But no, and why this guy, Simon Dovey, he does have a Twitter account. I forget what exactly that is, but and I don't think this is the guy's real name either. But what he does a really good job of is taking these cases of these people who prey on children and tying them together, because they all seem to know the same people. weird how that works out. And so I'm only 68 pages into this. So granted, there's 256 pages, so I'm a good chunk into it, but I'm interested to see like where exactly this goes. Like how far does the rabbit hole go? I know of other people who have read this and covered it on YouTube, and it seems to come up a lot with the parapolitics groups. So yeah, this is my next endeavor. I hope it's not as bad as Program to Kill, because that book kind of messed me up for a while. Not gonna lie. Just God, the amount of like gruesome crap and evil people that are out there, and it's just all condensed into one book with Program to Kill. Yeah, and having kids, I have a feeling this is not going to be an easy read. And I've already had issues with my oldest daughter. I made the mistake of putting Roblox on her tablet at one point. It was a game that she had played before with other kids. She really wanted to play it. It looks a lot like Minecraft. But, and I've told this story before, there's one day she's playing it and I hear her talking to her tablet. I'm like, what game does she play that she has to talk to her tablet? And apparently Roblox has a feature where you can do a chat, a voice chat with other people, because it uses servers. And it's not a game that you just download. You're actively playing with other people and you can communicate with those other people. Now, as of recently, the FBI actually released a report stating that parents should be concerned about certain video games that are played online where they know that predators like to hang out and try to talk to children. So my daughter's talking to her tablet and she's saying things like, yeah, I like you a lot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who are you talking to? And as I take the tablet from her, the list of people that are in this chat starts to disappear. So I'm like, yeah, you're done with this. But even yesterday, she was like, when can I play Roblox again? I'm like, when you're an adult. She's like, how long is that? Like when I'm 50? Yes. But I did find out that Minecraft, another game that she apparently really enjoys watching, but hasn't really ever played, doesn't have to connect to any of these servers or anything. Like you can just play it on a Nintendo Switch. So I'm like, do I just get that for her and tell her to like forget Roblox? I don't know. But this whole thing of like the easy access to children on the internet, like that bugs me. That really bugs me. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the book challenge. I'm more than a third of the way through. And there's these weird achievements that they have on here, like you're a January reader, you're a February so they've got like all the months of the year, and then there's Grand Slam, nailed it, stepped up. So apparently once I hit 30, it should just unlock nailed it, I guess. And if I go above 30, I stepped up from the goal. I don't know how any of this works. But I do like how Goodreads is, you're able to keep track of all the stuff that you've read, and you can go back and figure out how many. Currently, let's see here. Currently, I have 1,075 books cataloged on here that I have read. And the cool thing that I like on here is that they do have now the great courses. You can count those as books that you have read. Thinking Like an Economist, A Guide to Rational Decision Making is listed on here. So if I'm listening to a great courses program, that counts on Goodreads as a book that I've read, which is pretty awesome. Some other books, let's see here. If you have any interest in Eye of the Chicken Hawk, The Octopus, Secret Government, and the Death of Danny Casolaro, that was pretty good too. That's a really quick read. And I actually found a podcast, I don't remember her name, but she read through the entire book on her podcast. So like there were different episodes where she would read several chapters of it and then she'd cut off the show and you'd go to the next episode to hear the rest of the book. So that was a fascinating book. Be Useful, 7 Tools for Life by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Short read. But he expanded his audiobook because, at this point of the book, I was thinking like, I really wanted to cover how to do this, but then I decided I was going to do this instead. So a lot of commentary in his audiobook, which I actually enjoyed because it made it more personal. Okay, and then the George Smiley. So yeah, it was Call for the Dead, book 1, A Murder of Quality, book 2, and then The Spy Who Came In From the Cold was book 3. So that's the order of those books. And a lot of times you can find those used as like one volume with all 3 books. And yeah, why is that on here? So weird. I don't know how they organize any of this stuff on here. Like it's not in any type of order of like when I actually read these. And then, One to Read, which that's just casually browsing through here anyways. I've got like 406 books that I want to read. It's kind of a stupid list unless you're actually like picking stuff on here and avidly trying to work your way through the list. Oh no, I just like to read random stuff, and then when I put it on here and check it off, does the number dwindle down? No, because there's always more stuff that I want to read than I'm actually reading. My current 4 books, I should probably cover that before finishing here. All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. I'm still reading 1Q84. I'm actually on the 3rd volume of that. So reaching towards the end, it's gotten kind of weird. It was already weird, but book 3 made it weirder than it needs to be, I think. I need to dig this one out. The Murder of Chris Kyle, An American Hero. This is where a guy actually covered the entire trial, and it was one of those I was reading for a bit, put the book down, and now I gotta go find it again. And a book that I've been reading for like 2 years that I'm going to finish sooner than later. The Medusa File 2, The Politics of Terror and the Oklahoma City Bombing by Craig Roberts. That alone is just a volume of holy crap. Because there's so much information in there. This is the guy, he was one of the lead investigators on the Oklahoma City bombing, like right after it happened. His bosses kept trying to point him in a certain direction, and he's like, that's not where the evidence is taking me. So you can either leave me alone and piss off, or I'm going to do this on my own. And it's pretty much what he did. He ended up, I can't remember if he was fired or he stepped down. But he just continued the investigation on his own, and this book he published because time was short, and he wanted to make sure that the information that he had was out to the public. So there you have it. That is where I'm at with the reading challenge, the things I am currently working through. Actually, I've got to add this to the list on here. So I'm currently reading 5 different books. And that's about it. That's where I'm at for 2025. 11 books so far. Not bad. Keep on typing.